All right. Good morning, everybody. Sorry, running a couple minutes late here. So we'll go ahead and get started here. If you got a question, go ahead and post it either below the video if you're on a mobile device, or if you're on any other device, it should be to the right-hand side of the video. Just post your question there and then click send, and it'll show up on here and I will answer it. All right. So we'll go ahead and get started here with Nicholas P. Nicholas P says, in the TSG system, which of the 5 systems is the best way to decrease loft? Sometimes my driver spins a bit too high, and my spin loft has always been higher than it should be, around 3,000 for a 95 mile per hour swing. So, first of all, 3,000 spin isn't too bad for a 95 mile per hour spin. So it's probably not going to change a whole lot if you get it down to like 20. I mean, you could maybe get it down to 25, 2,000, but it's probably not going to change a ton about your game going down to there. So 3,000, as long as you're not like 4, 5, 6,000 spin, you're typically going to be in pretty good shape with the driver. 3,000 is not too bad. So anyway, as far as what's going to help you de-loft the face, that's going to be the straight line release. So when we're talking about the straight line release, this is where the club is splitting the forearms in front of contact, right? So splitting the forearms, meaning right here. We want that to be happening about 45 degrees out front. So if I rewind this to impact, you can see that I'm going to have some forward shaft lean here. And that's what de-lofting the face gives you forward shaft lean. Or sorry, gives you forward shaft lean, but it can decrease the spin. Lower loft is lower spin. But you don't want to just jump to the straight line release course. Because that may not be the best course of action for you, Nicholas. I would look at your swing on video and see what's happening there, because really that's the last thing that you really want to work on in the Toss V Golf system in the sequence. You want to make sure that your spine angle is good. So your stable fluid spine, that's the first piece of the Toss V Golf system. That's the number one key to consistency in the Toss V Golf system. So if you are not in a good spine angle, you basically have 0 to no chance of getting that straight line release correct. So for those of you who aren't familiar with what the straight line or what the stable fluid spine is, what we want to do is we want to be angled away at address, roughly about 6 to 8 degrees. And then we want to remain stable as we go up to the top. So the overall angle of our body wants to remain the same as we go up to the top. So if we're leaning toward the target or too far angled away as we're going up to the top, that can cause some inconsistency issues. And then in the downswing, we want to get that angle more angled away, roughly about 20 degrees or so when we're coming into contact. So that would look something like this. When we're coming into contact, we're roughly about 20 degrees angled away as we're coming in. So if we are coming into contact and we are like this, where we're angled toward the target or too vertical, which is what we see most of the time, you're just going to have a hard time getting this club to release out front. It's going to want to release closer to where your spine is pointed at, which would be straight up and down. So getting this more angled away is going to allow you to release that club out in front. So that's really, really important. You got to have your stable fluid spine correct. And you just got to look at your swing on video to see what's going on. Your power turn, I know it's not really directly related, but it can definitely indirectly cause some issues. So power turn, if you're not getting a good shoulder turn in the backswing, let's say you're getting a really, really short shoulder turn. Well, this is typically going to make you rush the downswing and going to make you swing kind of all arms in the downswing. And when you swing all arms in the downswing, you don't use your legs, and you're just not able to get that club to release out in front. You're going to throw your arms at it and release that club early, cast the club, all kinds of issues there. So you got to make sure that you're getting a good power turn. And also the power turn, that is some low-hanging fruit right there. It's one of the easiest pieces of the Toss V Golf system, and it's also one of the most beneficial pieces of the Toss V Golf system because it helps you to get distance, which is incredibly important for playing good golf. It's going to be hard to play good golf if you don't hit it very far. So getting a good power turn is going to help you get some really good distance there. Lag is another piece. That's the third piece of the Toss V Golf system. When we're talking about lag, we want to get this club trailing the hands more in the beginning of the downswing. So if you were going like this, if the club is catching up with your hands already in the start of the downswing, that's casting, or it's just not getting trailing the hands enough in the downswing, in the start of the downswing. You need to work on that, because if you're already releasing this club from already in this area, it's going to be tough to get it to release out in here. You're almost always going to be releasing that club early. So you have to get lag in the swing. That's the third piece. The fourth piece is the compression line course. So the compression line is the line that goes up from our lead ankle, lead hip, and lead shoulder at contact. So it looks like something like this. When I'm coming into contact, I want that to be in a nice straight line. I want my hips to be opening up as I'm coming into contact. That's the compression line. So if I'm coming in, I'm bumping my hips out. So you can see now my hip is out of alignment here. I can't rotate my body to get it to open up. And if my body doesn't open up, I can't release this club out in front. Because if the hips stall out and they don't open up as we're coming into contact and they're not continuing to open up, that's going to send a chain reaction through my body that isn't going to allow me to release this club out in front. Basically, as my hips decelerate, that's going to accelerate the next piece. It sends a chain reaction. And then that piece decelerates and that accelerates the next piece. Now we want that chain reaction to happen, but we want it to happen to where this club is releasing out in front. We don't want it to be happening to where the club's releasing right there. And if we don't continue to keep the hips opening up as we're coming into contact, that chain reaction is going to happen too early and we're going to release right there. So basically, if you don't go through the first four pieces of the top speed golf system and get those down, you're going to be really, really fighting getting that straight line release. It's going to be pretty much impossible to get that straight line release. So yes, the straight line release course is definitely going to be the piece that's going to help you to de-loft the face more, but it's going to be almost impossible to do that if you're not nailing the other pieces first. So I would say go look at your swing on video, face on and down the line. Look at your swing on video. Most of this is going to be seen from the face on view. Go get familiar with each piece of the top speed golf system. Go watch the videos. It doesn't take a bunch of videos. In fact, you can just take what I said right here and look and make sure that you're 6 to 8 degrees at address, 6 to 8 degrees at the top of the swing, stable overall angle of your body. Make sure that you're about 20, 25 degrees coming into contact. Make sure you have at least a 90-degree turn. Make sure that you're generating lag. You're sharpening this angle in the downswing. Tour average is about 55 degrees at lead arm parallel to the ground in the downswing. That's typically what you're going to see there. Make sure that your compression line is good, that your lead ankle, lead hip, lead shoulder all in a straight line, slightly angled away from the target with the body opening up into contact. And by that time, then you look at your straight line release. And if it's a little bit early, then work on that straight line release course. But at least you have the pieces in place to be able to help you to get into that position. Because if your spine angle's off, you're just not going to release it out in front. If your power turns off, you're just going to have a hard time getting that club release out in front. So that's what I'd recommend doing for sure, Nicholas. All right. So Brian F says, hi, Q, what type of ball would you recommend a player with a swing of 90 to a player with a swing speed of 110? Really, most golf balls go the same distance. It's really personal preference. It's more about how the golf ball feels to you. So I personally like a softer feeling golf ball, but I like the feel that it really comes off the face explosively. So basically, any golf ball that is a tour, like what they would call a premium golf ball, is going to do that. So your Pro V1s, your TaylorMade TP5s, your Snell MTB Black, there's a ton of golf balls. The Bridgestone balls that Tiger and Bryson uses, those balls are like that. I'm probably leaving a bunch out. Callaway, I know, makes some players that tour players use. Basically, any of those golf balls, and those golf balls are going to work for whether you have a 90-degree club head or 90 mile per hour club head speed or 110 mile per hour club head speed. It's not going to make as big a difference as you think. So I would just focus on a golf ball that you like the way it feels when you hit it, and that's going to give you that's going to be the best thing for you, I would say. So if you like kind of a harder feeling golf ball, maybe a little bit lower spinning golf ball, then you might want to try kind of like Pinnacle or basically the lower, they're going to be cheaper too, which is good. Titleist NXT makes a good, that's a good golf ball. The MTB red ball or the Snell red ball is also a good one. That's kind of a harder feeling golf ball. But I like a ball that feels soft, soft around the greens, and kind of feels like it explodes off the face with irons and with the driver. And that's basically any premium tour ball is going to do that. And you're going to usually get some pretty good spin on those balls as well, because on wedge shots and chips and stuff like that, because it's a softer cover golf ball. It's a urethane cover, which is a softer cover. Those golf balls are a lower spin and they feel harder. Those are going to be like Surlyn cover, I believe it's called Surlyn. It's just a harder material. It feels harder. It doesn't spin it quite as much. But honestly, it's not going to be a game changer. Golf ball is not going to be. I could go out with a Surlyn cover golf ball and shoot roughly the same score. It's just going to feel a little bit different. I might have a little less spin around the greens. It might make a small difference. Now, if you're a player that's a tour player or something like that, you're definitely going to be able to feel a difference. But to 99% of the population, you're really not going to be able to. There's not going to be much of a difference between you playing a Pinnacle, Top Flight, or a Pro V or something like that. It's mainly how the ball feels to you, and you just gotta like how the ball feels. So that's why I play the Snell black balls, MTB black balls. They feel just like a tour ball, and hey, they're a lot cheaper. I think Pro Vs are something like $50 a dozen. I played those pretty much. Those are pretty much the only balls I played for a long time, the Pro V1s. And then I tried these Snell balls, and they basically feel the same. And they're a lot cheaper. They're like $32 a dozen versus $50+ a dozen. So to me, it's a no-brainer to go with the Snell ball. And Snell does send us free golf balls. So just a disclaimer there. They do send us golf balls to use in the videos. But I mean, they don't pay us anything or anything like that. They just send us some golf balls. So I get some free golf balls from there, but I also buy golf balls from them as well. So yeah, those are the ones that I recommend. Typically, if you like a harder cover ball, I would say get the red ones. And if you like a tour premium feeling ball, I would go with the MTB black. They have a new one now. It's a blue box, but I'm not really sure. I haven't looked at it and see exactly what all entails. But I'm guessing it's somewhere in the middle of those two. I would imagine. So Paul K says, how do I stop shanking my irons? So there's a couple things that can cause shanking. One, the main thing is that you're hitting it off too much off the heel. So the first thing that I would do is I would try to hit it off the toe, because even on the shots that you're not shanking, you're probably hitting it somewhere in this area, and the ones that you're shanking are probably right here. So the first thing I would do is I would try to hit it on the toe. That's the first thing I do. I'd line up to the ball as you normally would, and then I would intentionally try to strike it on the toe. And if you're still hit it in the heel, then exaggerate even more. You may even need to feel like you're missing the golf ball to the inside. That's how much off the toe you may need to feel to make it happen. So intentionally try to strike it off the toe. If you strike it in the toe, if you actually do, then that's great. All that means is that you overdid it a little bit. So all you have to do at that point is just ease off of it. So, and you keep doing that until your strikes actually end up what you're trying to do. Because right now what's happening is you're trying to hit it in the center of the face, but you're hitting it in the heel, right? You're hitting it in the heel and on the hosel. So you got to adjust your feel to get the desired result that you want. Eventually, your feel is going to come back around, and when you're trying to hit it on the toe, you're actually going to hit it off the toe. And at that point, you can ease off of that feeling to get it more in the center of the face. Now, let's talk a little bit about what also causes shanks. One is you could be standing a little bit too close to the golf ball. So I would check that. If you're standing kind of on top of the golf ball here, so you just don't have a lot of space between your hands and your arms, and maybe you're really upright and standing on top of the golf ball, it's just going to be hard to not hit a shank when you do that. So the easiest way to kind of do this is basically just get a little bit of flex in the knees, get it in an athletic position, arms at your side, and then bend over at the waist and let your arms just kind of hang down. And as soon as your hands get about 4 or 5 inches in front of your thighs, stop right there, and that's about where you should be. That's going to be about the perfect placement. Now, you don't want to keep going because now you're in this area. You're too far bent over. So when you get that good athletic position, a little bit of bend in the knees, bend over at the waist, hinge at the waist, let your hands just kind of hang down. As soon as they're 4 or 5 degrees in front of your thighs, which is going to be about right there, that's where you should be, right there. That's going to be a pretty good place for about everybody. If you're someone who's right here, it's going to be maybe making it a little bit difficult for you to get it in the center of the face. It may be making it so that you're hitting it in the heel. So that'd be number one. Number two is what we call early extension. So what that means is that my hips are moving toward the golf ball at any point during the swing. Usually this is happening in the downswing. So if in the downswing, I look at my swing, if we pretend that my backside is up against the edge of this vent here, if in the downswing, I start to move away from that vent, my hips are moving toward the golf ball. That's taking my hands out toward the golf ball, and I'm just going to move the hosel toward the golf ball, and I'm going to end up hitting shanks. So what you need to do is make sure that you're basically feel like you're kind of sitting down in a chair. Like I have a chair right here, back here, and I'm trying to sit down in that chair as I'm rotating into contact. So I'm going to go up, I'm going to sit in the chair and rotate into the golf ball. We don't want to just sit in the chair and not rotate, because if we do, then we're just going to do that, right? We're just going to early extend late, and you're going to do the same thing. So we need to kind of feel like we're sitting in the chair and rotating into contact, and that's going to allow us to not get our hips moving toward the golf ball in the downswing. So that would be the second piece. The third piece is you may be swinging too much from the inside. What that means is if you're looking from down the line here, you see this club working from the inside, meaning this would be in line with my hands right here. This would be inside my hands. This would be outside my hands, okay? So if this club is working too much from the inside, that hosel is coming right at the golf ball. So if my hand here, if my fist is the golf ball, and this club's working inside, you can see the hosel, the center of the face is moving in that direction. The hosel's coming right for the golf ball. You're going to hit a lot of hosel rockets when you do that. So you may need to feel like you're swinging a little bit more over the top, like you're actually coming down and the club's working down outside your hands. This is just like we talked about with the strike location. It's adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want. Doesn't mean the reality is that you're going to do this. It means that's what you're going to feel, because the reality of what's going to happen is it's probably going to be working more down the hands. So again, I would just go through those pieces. Number one, I would intentionally try to hit it off the toe. Number two, I would take a look at your swing on video, look at it from down the line, and see if your hips are moving toward the ball at any point in the swing. If they are, then you want to feel like you're kind of sitting down in the chair and rotating through contact. Feel that weight in your lead heel as you're coming into contact. If you're out on your toes, if you're feeling your pressure in the toes, that's a good indication that you have early extension there. And lastly, I would look at your swing and see if you're swinging too much from the inside. If you look on video and you see this club's working from the inside, then you need to feel like you're swinging over the top a little bit. Get that club working outside the hands. That's not literally what's going to happen. It's just a feeling that you want to have. What you want to have happen is you want to get that club working down pretty close to on plane, but you're just adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want. All right. So keep the questions coming here. We'll go ahead. Looks like we got a couple more here. So Daniel W says, "Hi Q, for chipping, do you recommend a hinge and hold swing or just a straight arm swing?" So hinge and hold, that's something that Phil Mickelson kind of coined or whatever. And if you look at his swing, he's really not holding anything. He's hinging a little bit, and he's also releasing a little bit. So I recommend kind of a little bit of a hinge and let that club release out in front. It's more of a natural motion. So if you look at his swing, he's not hinging the club and doing that, right? Because that would be holding, right? It's just a feeling maybe that he has, that he's hinging and he feels like he's holding, but he's really releasing the club if you watch him. So what really helps with that, and where that mindset can actually help, is because it kind of forces you to get your body moving through. Because the biggest issue I see with people with chipping and pitching is that they don't use their lower body. They do all arms. And for a really kind of short kind of swing, that can help. That can work. I mean, you can do, if it's a really short swing, you can do that kind of thing. But most chips and pitches aren't going to be these little short swings where you can go really slow and control it with the arms. Most of them are going to have a little bit of speed to them. You're going to need to use the legs and get the knees moving around. So that's what I'd recommend doing, is allow the knees to move around and get everything moving through together. So I think the easiest way to do that is to set up a little bit open already. So I'm actually going to grab a wedge here so I can kind of show you. So preset the body open a little bit. So if I'm hitting it straight that way there, all right, I would actually open up my body like this so that it makes it easier for me to get everything opening up into the target. So like I said, he talked about hinge and hold. So he's talking about hinge right here and then hold through contact. That's not what he's doing. He's hinging it, and if you watch him in slow motion, he is releasing this club a little bit as he's coming into contact, just like we talk about in the wedge series on the website. It's just a good feeling. It may be a good feeling for you if you're someone who's used to just doing all arms through contact. Because if you go all arms and you don't bring the body through with the hands, you're going to release early. So if you do this hinge and hold kind of business, if you hold, you basically have to get your body moving through contact, right? So that I like that kind of feeling for some people who are really struggling getting the legs moving. So get your feet opened up, preset, and that's going to help you get that club going back. A little bit of hinge. You don't have to do a hinge either. I like to do a little bit of hinge. I think it makes it a little bit more of a dynamic. It helps me to kind of accelerate through the ball a little bit better. But you can experiment with just kind of having rock solid hands and keeping the body going through here. That's kind of like Steve Stricker. That's kind of what he does. He kind of has these rock solid hands here and lets the club go back and brings it through with his body. And they call it kind of a dead hands approach. So essentially, he's just kind of letting the hands like kind of come through with his body, and he's not using the wrist to hinge or release or anything. I like to have a little bit of that. It helps me have a little bit more speed, but it's really to each their own. So you can try it either way, but basically you can do a little bit of hinge, or you can do all kind of just bringing the hands back, and then make sure that you're just bringing it through with your body. Get the body opening up. Let the knees move around. So you may see some tour players do this kind of all arms approach where they don't move anything. They just move their arms. And if you're taking a really slow swing, a really short swing, you can do that. But that's not what most of the time what it is. It's most of the time it's more of a dynamic, more of a longer swing. It's a longer swing that you have to get to. So if you're asking, do I recommend hinge and hold? I don't literally recommend that, because that's not actually what you're doing. But if it's a feeling that helps you to get your body moving through, then absolutely. That's definitely something that you can do. And I would actually recommend working through our wedge system. We actually have a great pitching system and wedge system on the website where Clay talks about the technique that you'll want to use and things like that. To get to that, all you got to do is click the house icon at the top of the page there. That will take you to the home page. If you scroll down the home page, you'll see a list of all the courses there, and you'll find the wedge system right there. All right. So Thomas O says, I bought the Speed Golf radar for the 20-minute distance fix. At the range, it works, but in the garage with practice swing balls, it does not. Any suggestions? It's supposed to work with these balls. I'm not sure which one did you get. if you got the blue one, the swing speed radar, those do work. It's reading what's in front of it. So I would just set it up according to the instructions, and it does work with if you're it works if you swing with anything. You just need to point it at the club. So the way to easily do that, if you're using the swing speed radar, is it needs to be set up about 8 to 10 inches to the side of it, and then angled in 45 degrees. So basically, so that way that device is pointing at the club as it's coming in to contact. It doesn't matter if you're using practice balls or not. Now, if you're using the swing caddy, you have to hit real golf balls with those. It is required, and you have to hit a ball in order for it to work. So it's kind of the downside of the device. The good side is that it gives you ball speed as well, and it gives you an estimated distance, and it's got some cool games and stuff on it that you can do. But the downside is that you can't hit a practice ball or swing without a ball or anything like that. So you just got to look at what you're wanting to use it for. So if you have the swing caddy, you do have to hit a real golf ball. Practice balls are not going to work. If you have a swing speed radar, it will work. You just have to set it up correctly. So it sounds like you may have it set up incorrectly if it wasn't working. If you have the swing speed radar. All right. So Stephen N says my divot is out to in. Does that indicate that I'm casting? Not necessarily. It just indicates that your path is out to in. If you want to know if you're casting or not, you got to video your swing. That's, you use, what's really awesome is that you use your divot as a feedback mechanism. That's really good. What we can also do is we can use the video as a feedback mechanism. So that's how you really know if you're casting or not, is if you look on video and you see at the top of the swing, you have an angle between your lead forearm and shaft, and then that starts to get bigger from the very, very start of the swing. That's going to be casting. So that's really the only way for you to know for sure if you're casting or not, is to look at it on video. So people ask me all the time, what is the best training aid out there? And I tell them, hey, it's video. There's no doubt about it. It's video. And the cool part is that most of you already have a way to be able to, most of you already have this training aid. It's in your pocket. It's your phone, right? So most of these phones these days actually have very, very good cameras on them, and you can video your swing. A lot of them have slow motion cameras where you can see, 240 frames per second, what's going on in your swing. So that's what I would look at. And out to in a divot, I can have lag and swing out to in. I can cast and have out to in. So it's not going to be an indication. Now, if you are coming over the top, you're going to want to cast a little bit more, and you may have an out to in path. I would say it's more likely that you do, but that is not necessarily an indication that you are casting the club. All right, so Paul H says, at the top of your backswing, I have heard that the palm of your right hand should be like a waiter holding a tray. That is the palm facing the sky. This seems a little extreme. Do you recommend that? Absolutely. This is going to help you to shallow out the club. So if your palm is kind of going like that, you're going to end up with a cupped lead wrist here, which if I come into contact with the cupped lead wrist, look at where my face is. It's wide open. So I'm just going to have to, you can come into contact like this, or you can be at the top like this. You're just going to have to do a lot more manipulation in the downswing. You're going to have to do a lot more in the downswing to get that face to square up. So if I'm like this at the top, you can see I'm at the top. Now, I'm not literally going to be like that, right? But it's just a feeling that you're going to have. I mean, if I'm at the top here, you can see, if I had a tray in my hand, I'd be spilling the drinks everywhere. But that's kind of the feeling that you want to have. You don't want to be like this necessarily, but that is a good feeling to have, like the palms kind of pointing up to the sky. So you can see there, I have a nice flat wrist, and that's going to allow me to come into contact with a nice square face. It's going to make it a lot easier for me. It's going to make it easier to shallow the club, because that club is going to want to go and get nice and shallowed out. If I'm like this, I'm going across the line, my wrist is cupped, I'm going to have to do a lot more manipulation in the downswing. That doesn't mean you can't play good golf doing that. It just makes it a little bit tougher to do that. So yeah, that is a good feeling. Is that literally what's happening? No, you're not. You don't. At least I can't bend my wrist that way enough to get or get my elbow in enough to be able to have my palm straight up to the sky. But if you're someone who's going really across the line, having trouble shallowing the club, having trouble squaring up the face, leaving the face open and things like that, you may want to have that feeling because that just gets that club. If you have that wrist kind of in a bent back and thumbs up position, so wrist extension and thumbs up, meaning radial deviation here. If I'm in that kind of position at the top, it just makes it a lot easier to get that club in a better position in the downswing. All right, so Earl C says, hi, Q. On a recent office hours, you said that the right hand should be along for the ride for a full swing. Is that also what you recommend for a chip? So let me clarify. So it's really along for the ride as you're coming through contact because the club is whipping through there. In the backswing, you need to be using your right hand and your left hand, your right end trail hand to get that club to go up the top. And in the beginning of the downswing, you're going to be using that right hand to get that club in position. But as we're coming down and coming into contact, this trail hand is really just along for the ride as the club is whipping through there because it technically can't keep up. If you're swinging this club in the most efficient way possible, your trail hand technically cannot keep up. So the reason for that is that if you think about the club, right, this is moving faster than this part. If I'm swinging it from here, this is moving faster than this part. So the tips of the fan blades are moving faster than the inner portions of the fan blade. So this, if this is moving as fast as I possibly can move it, right, and my hand is here and this is moving faster than this, then technically this can't keep up. If this is moving as fast as it can, then this can't keep up. So it needs to feel like it's actually just along for the ride and getting pulled along the way. You'll see a lot of tour players whose trail hands actually kind of come off the club as they're coming through there. Phil Mickelson, you'll see that sometimes. Freddie Couples, you see it in a lot of tour players. Vijay Singh, I've seen it where the club is where the hand's actually coming off the club as it's coming through there because it's just basically along for the ride. It's not throughout the entire swing. It's just as we're coming down, we're whipping this club through contact. You should have very little pressure in that trail hand there. But yes, you can kind of use that same feeling for chipping. It's going to feel more that way for the bigger swings where there's a lot more speed. It really just depends on how long the chip is. If it's a really short chip, you may need to have both hands kind of working together because you don't want to flip that club through. Things are moving slow enough that the hand is going to be able to keep up. Kind of for pitch shots as well, you're allowing this club to kind of whip through there. So you should have a fairly light right hand. Main thing is you don't want the club to be trying to push its way through there because if you're on a chip shot, doing this kind of action is going to hurt you. And if you're on a pitch shot, doing that kind of action is going to hurt you as well. So the main thing is that you want to feel like it's nice and light as you're coming through contact to allow the club to kind of whip through there with forward shaft lean. That's really the main thing. And if you have proper sequencing and you're doing the Toss to Golf system correctly, then that should make it pretty easy to do. It's probably just not going to feel the same chip shot or a shorter pitch shot because it's a shorter shot. There's not as much speed going on there. All right, so Thomas V says, I'm shallowing my club just as I reach the top of my backswing. Is it more beneficial to shallow the club as a component of the downswing? That's a good question, Thomas. So if you're shallowing the club in the backswing, that really doesn't do you any good. The whole reason why we want to shallow the club is to essentially get it on plane. So the plane in the backswing doesn't make near as much difference as it does in the downswing. You're hitting the ball with your downswing. You're not hitting the ball with your backswing. So whatever you do in the backswing is just to get the club in as good a position as possible for the downswing. So a lot of times if you shallow this club, meaning I'm coming back like this, I'm shallowing up this club in the backswing, that doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen in the downswing. In fact, a lot of times when I see people shallow the club in the backswing, they'll come down steep in the downswing because it gets momentum kind of going in this direction, and then you kind of want to chop down on it. So what you want to do is get the club in a good position at the top and then get the club shallowing in the downswing. And all that means shallowing out the club is getting it to be on plane. The reason why we say that shallowing, because most people are swinging more vertical. The backswing is more vertical than the swing plane itself. So typically your swing plane, if you were to look at it, it's typically going to be about from, if you were looking from down the line, it would be from the hosel of the club up through the point of your elbow here. So that's basically the swing plane. So if I were to swing on that plane, my swing would basically look like this, right? It'd be pretty flat. So this club is already in a pretty shallow position. I just need to keep it there and the downswing to have it shallowed out, right? But if you look at most people and most tour players and most better players who have good distance, they're bringing the club more vertically like this, right? So if I come down on that same plane, I'm going to be coming down steep into the golf ball. So what do I have to do? I've got to shallow this club out to get it on plane in the downswing. So that's all shallowing out the club is getting the club to be on plane. So you want that to happen in the downswing. That's where it matters, is in the downswing. So being on plane in the backswing is great, but it doesn't matter much if it's not on plane in the downswing. If you're on plane in the backswing and then over the top in the downswing, that's going to lead to a bad result. If you're bringing this club up like this, but then you swing down on plane in the downswing, that's going to lead to good results. So downswing is where it matters to be on plane, to get that club in a good position on plane in the downswing. If you're someone who brings the club back really flat, I've had some players tell me that they're working on their shallowing, and I see that their swing looks like this, right? So at the top of the swing, they look like this, and then in the downswing, they do that. Well, that's not shallowing out the club, right? You're actually steepening the club. You're bringing the club back in the backswing super shallow, which isn't going to help you. It's actually going to hurt you. It's most of the time going to hurt your speed. So I would actually say what you're going to see the best players in the world do. So like your Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson, Justin Thomas, Rory McIlroy, all these guys, they bring the club up vertically in the backswing, and then they shallow it in the downswing. That's what you're going to see basically every single good player doing. So you want to shallow it in the downswing. That's where you want to get the club working down on plane. All right. So Daniel W. says, hi, Q. Are the golf courses in Florida staying open these days? What have you heard in the golf industry about early or late openings this season? As far as I know, the golf courses are open here in Florida. I'm sure some of them have maybe closed, but the country club where we shoot the videos at and where we play golf most of the time, they are open as far as I know. The last email I got, they just sent us a notice saying that they're taking precautions and taking certain measures, but everything's still open. So, but I know in other areas that, things are a little bit different. So, yeah, I would just, call out there if you're not sure, if you call out to your club or whatever. But yeah, I don't know specifically everywhere what's going on, but I know here, as far as I know, everything is still open. So Stephen S says, do you recommend the feel of coming into the back of the ball or coming down on top of the ball at contact? I like the feel of coming into the back of the ball, like you are, like this is a hammer, right? So I have this. I like the feeling as I'm coming into the back of the ball, like this is a hammer. I'm hammering this ball. That's the feeling that I like to have when I'm coming into contact. But that doesn't mean that that's going to be the right feeling for you. If feeling like you're coming down on top of the ball helps you hit the ball better, then that's, both of these things literally are not happening. Like I'm not coming into the ball like this, like I'm hammering the ball, and you're not coming down into the ball like that, right? These are just feelings to help you hit the ball better. So that's a lot of what golf is just adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want. So whatever feeling is helping you hit the ball better, then that's the one that you should use and stick with. So, yeah, I prefer kind of the hammer feeling coming into the back of the ball, but you may try it. It may not work for you, and you may try the feeling of coming into coming down on top of the ball, and that may work better for you. So it's really kind of to each their own as far as that goes. All right, so we got about 20 minutes left here. Go ahead and keep posting your questions, and we'll keep answering them. So yesterday I talked about I'm doing this. I got this quote book that I'm reading through. I just thought it was a cool book. It's got a bunch of quotes in it. They're all motivation kind of quotes. So I thought I would just talk about every day if we had any downtime, I would talk about a quote. So the quote of the day today is from Lena Dunham, who's actually an actress. She's in that HBO series. I think it's HBO. I don't watch it, but it says, "Hard work pays off. I'm so annoyed at my father for being right about that." So I thought that's kind of funny. It's kind of a funny quote, but so yeah, hard work pays off. Obviously, I think everyone knows that. But I like the second part where she says, "I'm so annoyed at my father for being right about that." Because how many times have we, thought that there's a magic pill, like there's something that I think this is very prevalent, especially in golf. I wish it worked out to where I could just tell you need to have a stable fluid spine. Then you're just like, okay, and then you just have it, and then you just do it. But it just doesn't work that way. You've actually got to put in the hard work to make it happen. That's basically what it comes down to. So that's what I'd recommend doing. Get the repetitions. Is when we tell you to do 1,000 reps, it's not just because, hey, we want to keep you busy, so you stay a member of the website. No, it's because it takes time. It takes time and repetition and hard work to get these things ingrained. Like, you can never get rid of a habit. You can never get rid of a habit. You can only create new habits to overcome the old ones. So if you're someone who is doing this, leaning toward the target, and you want to stop doing that, you have to build the habit of doing this. You can't just stop suddenly. You're going to have to keep thinking about it and doing it until it becomes second nature, and that takes a lot of hard work. So I thought that was a really good quote. So don't know if you guys are into that stuff, but I'm always interested in what successful people have done in their lives to get to where they are, and the kind of their thought process, because I'm trying to do the same thing myself. All right, so it looks like we got a couple questions come in while I was blabbering about the quotes and stuff. All right, so Mark N says, any suggestions on bounce and open club face for sand shots? We have 3 inches of dry, fluffy sand with firm, wet sand underneath. Leads to unexpected skull shots. Frustrating. Thanks. So you basically, when you're hitting out of a hard sand kind of bunker, or it's wet sand, or it's fluffy on top with a little fluffy layer with a hard layer underneath, or anything like that, you're basically playing these shots all the same way. The only difference, you just make a small adjustments if it's kind of hard or sand. And the way you can kind of get a feel for that is to kind of dig your feet into the sand. So if you dig your feet into the sand and it's super fluffy all the way down, then you're gonna want to hit behind the ball, probably about 4 to 6 inches, and you're gonna want to swing pretty hard when you do that. Now, if you dig into the sand, you just have a little fluffy layer like what you're talking about, a little layer there, and then it's hard underneath. You adjust it, you still do the same thing. So basically, your basic bunker shot, what you're doing is, number one, is you want to open up the face about 45 degrees. Don't open it up 20 degrees a little bit. Open it up 45 degrees. So you see here, I'm taking my grip. This is a square club face here, square club face. I'm going to twist the face in my hand, right? So now that face is 45 degrees there, open. And then, so basically the face is almost pointing straight up to the sky. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to dig my feet in a little bit to give me some stability. There's 2 reasons why people dig their feet in. One is to get a feel for what you're in. Is it hard turf? Is it fluffy? Or not turf? Is it fluffy sand? Is it hard sand? Is it fluffy a little bit on top, hard underneath? Is it wet? Whatever. it kind of gives you a good feel for what's going on. The other thing is it gives you stability because sand isn't a real stable surface. So digging in just a little bit gives you some stability. The other thing that it does is it can also help you to come in a little bit more shallow into contact, which can help you to get the club to kind of glide through the sand. But that's the main thing. The next thing is really to swing hard. You can't. I see too many people. They get these bunker shots and they just go like that. And the ball, they're going to hit skull shots. They're going to, when they do actually hit the sand at the right time or in the right place, the ball, you got to make sure that you're accelerating through. I mean, you're taking a pretty big whack at it for sure, especially if it's fluffy sand, because you're hitting more behind the ball to get it through there. So and you have your weight a little bit forward, and the ball's a little bit forward in your stance. You take a big whack at it, and you try to thump the sand 4 to 6 inches behind the golf ball. So that's basically your normal bunker shot. Is you're hitting and you're hitting it hard. Now, if you're on a harder surface, wet surface or anything like that, it's really the same thing. The only difference is you may open the face a little bit less. So here's why you open up the face. The reason why you open up the face is that when you open up the face, it exposes this bounce right here. And that's what Mark was talking about, suggestions on bounce. So if you're looking for, I would say a bounce anywhere from 10 to 14 is going to be a good place, a good spot for bounce on a wedge. This is a 10 degree bounce wedge, but it's a 50 degree wedge. I think on my 54 that I have, 54, I think I have a 12 degree bounce on it. I can't remember exactly. But anyway, this is an old wedge that I used to have, but it's got this bounce on it. And what that does, that's this flange that comes down right here. So if I have the face straight up and down like this, or if I'm coming in with forward shaft, you can see it doesn't really expose that bounce. That leading edge is going to want to dig into the sand. So if you imagine, if you're a water skier, right, and I'm going along the water and I dipped my the nose of the ski into the water, what's going to happen? It's going to dip down into the water. That's the same thing that's going to happen with this club. If I come into the sand and I'm leading with this edge here, this leading edge hits that sand, it's going to want to dig into the sand. You're not going to be able to get the ball out. So open up the face, that exposes this bounce, and that allows it, just like a water ski where it's on top of the water, to glide on top. That's what we want to do. We want this club to kind of glide through the sand. It wants to get down into the sand and then glide out of the sand, get underneath the ball and pop it out. That's what we want to do. So if you're in a normal, fluffy kind of sand, then you want that club to get fluff. You want it to get down into the sand just a little bit and then come up out of it. Use as much bounce as you can. Open it up 45 degrees. But if you're in some hard sand, you may want it to dig down into the sand as much. So you may open it up a little bit less. So instead of opening it up 45 degrees, you may open it up 30 degrees. That doesn't mean go into it with a square face. That means just ease up on how much you open it up. So you open it up about 30 degrees, I would say. Then the other thing I would say is really make sure that you really thump the sand. So feel like you're really hitting down and thumping that sand behind the golf ball. And you may want to hit a little bit closer to the golf ball. So here's the adjustments real quickly for hitting out of wet, hard, or hard layer underneath, soft layer on top, hard layer underneath kind of sand. Is you open the face. Number one, you open the face a little less. Number two is you're going to hit a little bit closer to the golf ball. So typically you would hit 4 to 6 inches behind the golf ball. I would hit 2 to 4 inches behind the golf ball, somewhere in that area. Again, it's something you're going to have to practice. It's not something you're just going to have to take what I'm saying. Because if you take what I'm saying and go out to the course, you're probably not going to be real good. You can't expect to be good with it. You have to go practice this to be good with it. And then the last piece is to feel like you're coming down and thumping the sand a little bit more, like you're hitting down into the sand a little bit more. That's going to allow that club to dig into the sand. And if you've got, because basically what happens when you hit those skull shots is the club hits the sand, it bounces off the sand, and then goes up into the golf ball. So what we want to do is all these adjustments are to help you get into the sand a little bit more behind the ball. So opening up the face a little bit less allows it to get into the sand a little bit more. hitting a little bit closer to the ball gives it time to get into the sand a little bit instead of bouncing up out of it. Coming down and feeling like you're thumping down on the sand a little bit more downward angle of attack allows you to dig into that sand a little bit. So it just takes practice. You got to go out and practice it. It's not something you can just take what I'm saying and go do. You got to practice it to get good at it. All right. So Paul H says, are the newest drivers really giving you more distance? Maybe it depends on your swing speed. No. So the newest drivers on center face strikes are not giving you more distance. All things equal, they're not giving you more distance. They cannot make the faces hotter. Any good driver that's been sold in the last, I would say, 20 plus years, the face is like a driver that you bought in 2010. It's going to go just as far on a center face strike as one that you buy right now. Now that doesn't mean there's a lot of other factors going on, but all things equal, the face is just as hot. They can't make the faces hotter. So what I'm saying there is that there's a trampoline effect, meaning when the golf ball hits it and compresses it, and it basically rebounds after that. That's the trampoline effect. So they can't increase the trampoline effect on these drivers and keep them legal, right? Now, you might be able to buy a legal driver and it'll go farther, but legal drivers are not going further. But that doesn't mean that a new driver can't go further for you. And these are on center face strikes. That's the most important thing here, center face strikes. Now, what they have done with drivers that have made them better, the technology better, is that they've made them essentially more forgiving, meaning it used to be to where, I was talking about that center face strike. That's where you get, the trampoline effect the most, right? Well, now they've made these drivers more forgiving by raising what's called MOI. And there's some other things that they've done as well, but main thing is MOI. And that has allowed them to be able to transfer more energy to the golf ball. Because basically what happens is when you miss the center of the club face, let's say I hit this ball way out here on the toe. What happens is that face will twist open. And when the face twists, it doesn't transfer as much energy to the golf ball. So what they've done is that they've raised the MOI. MOI is resistance to twisting. So if you raise the resistance to twisting, then the face won't twist as much when on an off-center strike, and it will transfer more energy to the golf ball. So what really is going on with the drivers, I would say, and it raises, I think they raise it minimally. Sometimes they don't at all, and there's a limit to the amount of MOI you can have as well. They haven't reached it yet, or to my knowledge, they haven't reached it yet. But there is a limit there. But high MOI drivers are going to be the Ping G410. That's a high MOI driver. I know Titleist new drivers are high MOI. I know that PXG's driver is a high MOI driver. So there's several of them out there, but that's really what they've been able to do. And there's other things that they've been able to do to be able to, that's all they can really do right now is make the drivers more forgiving. They can make it to where on an off-center strike that you're hitting the ball further. Now, if you got to think about this, if they were really making the drivers go a lot further, then driving distance would be going up more than what it is. Driving distance is going up more on tour because the club head speed of the players is going up. So it's right with each other. As club head speed gone up, distance has gone up. It's not club head speed staying the same and distance is going up. That's not what's happening. So, and most tour players, and pretty much all tour players are hitting it in the center of the face basically every single time with their driver. Their dispersion on the face is pretty minimal. So that's what's going on there with drivers. So that doesn't mean that you can't get some distance from another driver, because what they can do is they can put you in a shaft that is the right length for you. That gives you more club head speed. Not some people swing faster with shorter length, and some people swing faster with longer lengths. They can put you in a head weight that's the correct weight for you, that gives you the most club head speed. They can move the CG around on the driver head so that you can optimize your launch conditions. They can put you in a flex shaft that allows it to kick at the right time for you to get the most club head speed. The weight of the shaft, they can put you in a weight of shaft that gives you the most club head speed. So if you're someone who's never been fitted for a driver, and you're looking for some distance, there's a good chance going and get fitted for a driver. You can absolutely gain some distance because they'll do all those things. They'll get you optimized on all those pieces. If you're someone who's gotten fit in the last few years and you haven't really made any major changes, you haven't raised your club head speed any or anything like that, you're probably not going to get much out of going and getting a fitting. So the one thing you can do is bring your old driver with you, and that will, so you can compare them to each other, and so you can see what actually gives you speed. But all things equal, drivers are not going further on center face strikes, all things equal. But they can go. You can get a driver that goes further for you if you have all those other parameters a little more in place for you. All right, so it looks like we got a bunch of questions that came in. I'll do my best to answer all these. So Edward G says, I've just completed your Speed Fix course, and step into the ball drill helped me the most with speed, but also to stop my fade. Any tips to get the feel of stepping to the ball, but in a normal stance? Yeah, so I just keep on working through the drill. And Clay talks about how in that drill, you're going to basically you do the step drill, right? So you're doing the step drill, you get a feeling of it. And then what you can do to kind of transition this to a normal swing. I don't know if Clay talks about this in here, but I do this at the clinics with people who are having trouble with this. So the step drill is one that we work on in the clinics. And basically, so in the step drill, what you're doing is you're starting with your feet together, you're starting the swing, and then you're stepping forward, right? And then it's forcing you to get your momentum going forward. So that can be hard to translate into a normal swing because your feet are not together in your normal swing, right? So one thing that you can do in your normal swing is, or when you're trying to translate this to your normal swing, is to just do some practice swings where to transition this to a normal swing, take some practice swings where instead of having your feet together, have your feet in the normal place, and then kind of just do a step as you're going back. So you just lift that foot in the air, unweight this foot basically, lift off the ground, and then get that feeling going forward. Do a few swings of that, and then keep that foot in the ground, but get that same feeling of unweighting it, loading up your trail side, and then getting to your lead side at the right time. And that will help you to translate that to a normal swing. So again, your normal start out with the step drill. You're going to start out with your feet together, step forward, and then translate that into having your feet apart, kind of doing the step when you're doing that, and then translate that into keeping your foot on the ground, but getting that same feeling of unweighting that foot and getting that proper weight shift to the lead side, and then translate that to the golf ball. All right. So MK Ike C says, can you talk about tempo and transition from backswing to downswing? So what I will tell you about tempo and transition, it's not something that I would actually recommend directly working on. Good tempo and transition are a product of getting a good full shoulder turn and getting a good full shoulder turn and the follow through. So if you're someone who swings short, doesn't get a full shoulder turn, you're going to rush the downswing, throw the arms at, have bad tempo. If you get a nice, good full shoulder turn, you're going to get a good full finish and get a good full finish. You're going to have good tempo. So my best advice would be to work on the power turn course to improve that. To get to the power turn course, click the house icon at the top of the page. That's going to take you to the home page. When you scroll down the home page, you'll see a list of all the courses there. Select the power turn course and get started. So Mark N says, why do I hit pull hooks? seem less so when I was aggressively, despite closing when I was aggressively. So pull hooks are caused by the face being, so a hook is caused by the face being close to the path. That's all it comes down to, and or strike location being on the toe. So what I'd recommend doing is work through the never hook again course, because that's going to get you to where you're more on track with your club path and things like that. But yeah, a hook is caused by the face being closed to the path. So you could be coming over the top, but the face is closed. So the first thing I would do is I would try to feel like the face is more open as you're coming through contact, because the ball is going to start mostly in the direction of your club face. If you're pulling it, then that means that your face is closed. So the first thing that I would do is I would just try to feel like you're holding the face open through contact. So instead of rolling the hands over hard, I would actually feel like the hands aren't rolling over at all, and you're leaving this club face wide open. If you hit it straight to the right, if you're right-handed, if you hit it straight to the right, then ease off of that feeling a little bit. So some good feelings would be feeling like you're at the top of the swing, and that you keep your palm of your hand pointed to the sky as you go through contact. So the palm of your trail hand pointing up to the sky as you're coming through contact, because that's going to keep that face open as you come through. So when you roll over the face, your hand goes like that. Feel like that hand is staying pointed up to the sky as you're coming through contact. If you hit it straight to the right, then ease off of it. Maybe feel like it's pointed a little bit more that way instead of to the sky. So adjust your feeling to get the desired result that you want. Feel like you're hitting the inside part of the golf ball. So typically you'd be hitting the very back of the golf ball, right? Feel like you're hitting the inside part of the golf ball, because if you hit the inside part of the golf ball, the face has got to be open to hit that part of the golf ball. So you can feel like you're hitting the inside part of the golf ball. I'd try those two feelings to help you get the face a little bit more open. So Stephen N says, is there any hip slide in a normal swing? It seems like some pros do slide. So there is a lateral shift. I don't like to call it a slide, because I would say that this is a slide where you slide the hips and you don't rotate, right? So what you're going to see with tour players is that there's going to be a little bit of a lateral shift. There's definitely a lateral shift of a few inches, but once they feel that pressure in that lead foot, they're going to be pushing into the ground to rotate the body open. And that's what we talk about in the compression line course. So if you're sliding in the downswing, you may want to work on the compression line course. All you got to do to get to the course is click the instruction tab at the top of the screen there. That will take you to the Top Speed Golf system, and then you can click the instruction, or click the compression line course from there. So Mark Ann says, please advise best tee height and swing with 3-wood. So it depends on what you're trying to do with a 3-wood. If you're trying to hit your 3-wood, trying to launch it, then I would say launch it like you do with your driver. So if you're trying to get the most distance possible out of your 3-wood off the tee, I would hit it like you do basically your driver. So tee it up to where about half of the ball or so is above the crown of the club, and then hit up into the golf ball. So basically tee it a little bit further up in your stance, hit up on the ball so you can get that high launch and low spin. If you are trying to hit it very similarly like you would on the ground, not trying to hit it as far as possible, but basically maybe have a little bit more control of it, then I would hit it like you would off the ground. I would just tee it up to where you basically give yourself a perfect lie. So whatever it wouldn't be very much. Teeing it up maybe a 1/4 inch off the ground just to lift it out of the grass a little bit, give yourself that perfect lie, and that's how I would hit those. And you would just hit it just like you would with a normal swing. All right, so last question here is from Arvid NL. Says, do you recommend using Sky Pro or a similar device during training to create changes in your golf swing? I've never used the Sky Pro, so I can't recommend it or not recommend it. Sorry, Arvid, I wish I could help more, but I've never used it. If you're wanting to get changes in your swing, or I would just recommend using your video, because that's all you need to work through the Top Speed Golf system. We don't need to use all these devices. It's nice to have a TrackMan or something like that, but you don't have to have it. Literally, all you have to have is your phone to video your swing, and you can work through the Top Speed Golf system, the things that matter the most in the swing. That's what I'd recommend doing. Make sure your spine angle is good. Make sure you're getting a good shoulder turn. Make sure you're getting lag. Make sure your compression line is good. Make sure you're releasing that club out in front. That's what I'd be working through, and all you need is a video for that. So hopefully that helps. But if you're asking, I've never used a device. It might be a completely fine, great device, but I've never used it. So I'm not really sure. I'm honestly not even sure. I think that's the one that attaches to your club. Is that the one that Garmin makes, or can't remember who makes it? But I think I've heard of it. I've just never used it. Those ones that attach to the club typically aren't, in my experience, things that attach to your hand and attach to your club typically aren't the most accurate. I like devices that are reading, so something like a swing speed radar or a PRGR that's actually going to read what your club is doing. That's going to give you some club head speed and tell you what's going on there. That's what I'd recommend if you're wanting something for speed training. But the Sky Pro, like I said, I don't know what all it gives you. But if you're working on your technique, then I would recommend just using your video camera. All right. Thanks everybody for joining me today. I'll be back here tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Everybody have a good rest of your day, and I will talk to you next time.